On August 23rd, 2020, the family of Jacob Blake received some horrible news that young Jacob Blake, 29 years old, was shot by police 7 times in the back while his young children sat and watched in horror. Jacob Blake is still trying to recover, but the family is still working hard with him. Earlier this month, the officer who shot Jacob Blake 7 times, there was a decision made not to bring charges against him. Today, we're going to talk with Jacob Blake's uncle. Welcome, Justin Blake. Thanks for joining Fire NMPA's live broadcast.
I'm like, brother, thanks for having us.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And I know your brother, Jacob's dad, was supposed to join us. He had some medical concerns that's being taken care of. We wish him the best as well.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
So, Justin, you and I had I had the privilege of speaking with you and your brother on the phone about a week ago. You were in Washington, D.C. During the inauguration of President Joe Biden. You were also there with a friend of the family. You guys have become family, the aunt of Breonna Taylor. Tell the audience what you guys were doing in Washington.
Well, Brianka Austin joined us, which is Breonna's aunt, the mother, sister to the mother. And we were there just trying to push the laws and bills that we're trying to get changed, as all our families are interlinked in regards to the interaction between police and civilians, in particular African-American civilians that end up on the wrong end of the stick quite often in 2020.
Yeah, and obviously you share something, a lot in common with the Taylor family. They lost Breonna, obviously, to police violence and that tragic incident there in Kentucky back last, I believe it was in March. What's been the relationship like? How have you guys supported each other?
Well, you're in a fraternity and a sorority that you never signed up for, which is a member of your family being having crimes committed against them by police officers. It's a really unique crew to be part of, and nobody can really understand some of the things that you go through unless you've been through it, meaning the Taylor family, the Blake family, the Floyd family, the Cole family, and many others, some of which we don't even know the names of. But the pain that goes around the thought and the concept that your loved one was murdered or harmed by somebody that's paid by your tax dollars to protect you. It's just a god awful thing to come to the realization that something as unconscionable as violence happening from a police officer to a civilian happening to your family member is really so hard to wrap your arms around.
Yeah, Bianca, when I spoke with her on the phone with you guys, she said it was the fraternity or sorority of pain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We can't, unless you've gone through it, you can't imagine. I know I can't imagine it, but we certainly do feel you guys' pain. How is Jacob Jr. doing?
He's doing well mentally, and that's the greatest part. He has some up and down days. We can't act like every day is sunshine and unicorns, but the down days aren't as down as the up days are. And so you thank God for the good days. And he utilizes his days to try to better himself physically and mentally. And he's going through his therapy with the passion that would get him back to walking one day. And so we know it's a long shot. We know it's going to be a lot of hard work, but if it ever could happen, we know it could happen for my nephew.
Yeah, and another question along those lines, Justin, his children were in the car. They witnessed this. How are they handling this?
Well, we just got to see them, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago when we visited Jake watching a football game, and they came to visit. And they had food and they were being regular little guys playing around. But usually when traumatic things like that happen to children, it doesn't come out immediately, but it may lash out in later years. Sometimes when they see or hear fire vehicles or police cars, we've heard they've been a little thrown off by that. So it's early on in the process. They're in therapy themselves, and they're trying to work out and figure out some things as little guys. But there's no equivocation. They saw what they saw,
Yeah,
and that will ever change their life.
yeah, absolutely. And I know that one of the goals of going to Capitol Hill is to meet with the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and also the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Have you made progress there?
So we've talked to other senators that are going to help us make that a reality. Because when we went to the inauguration, things were so um, thrown off because of the security measures that had to be in place after the craziness of the overthrow or coup that was attempted in the United States for the first time ever. That combined with covert, it was just hard to really contact people or see people at the time we were up there. However, we're going back in February for the reading of the George Floyd bill that's supposed to be coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And a quote from your brother. He says, "We hope that there will be federal charges brought against the officer in this case." He says that more importantly, though, you guys are going to be taking this all the way to Congress so that you can change some of these laws and address some of these problems that allow police officers to shoot Black people down like they did Jacob. And he also exclaimed that we've got to take away the immunity that the police possess.
Right.
Your thoughts on that, Justin?
Well, I mean, we're up there trying to abolish laws and get laws inserted that will protect African Americans across this beautiful nation. We helped as African descendants make this the richest nation in the world. And we deserve the liberties that they speak of so broadly when they speak about the Constitution and people's rights and civil rights. We, out of everybody, have fought in every war and we've loved this country way more than it's loved us. And in 2021, we want to see a little reciprocation. We want to see some laws put in place that will protect each and every little Jake out there. This is growing bigger than little Jake. Little
Yeah.
Jake's story is specifically about him. And he's 30 years old, and we spoke for him when he couldn't speak. Now he's starting to articulate as a young man what and how he feels. Whereas his father and us combined together are fighting for a national and international justice for African descendants all over this nation, all over the world.
Yeah, and I know attorney Ben Crump has been actively involved with the family. How important was it to have someone like attorney Ben Crump, who's known as a civil rights lawyer?
Well, that's Jacob and him had some type of relationship from HBCUs from years past, and what initially happened, that's who Jake chose to go towards, and he had a personal connection. So, it's important. HBCUs are important, crucial factor in the education of many African Americans throughout our nation, and to be able to have a rapport with somebody of that magnitude was only a natural way to go.
Yeah, and Justin, for you, going back to that August day, when did you hear what happened to your nephew? Where were you, and what was your reaction?
Well, actually, my dear brother, excuse us. Actually, we the night before were with the pastor and Pastor Brooks, and we passed out food from 8 in the morning till 3 in the next morning. We
Wow.
handed out over 10,000 plus packages of food to our community, and so when the incident occurred, I was knocked out. When I got home at whatever hour it was in the morning, we slept till late in the day. My phone was having some type of difficulty. I just remember turning it off, and I sort of got with it. I think Monday. The incident occurred Saturday or Monday. Was it Saturday
I
when it
think
occurred?
it sounds like it was if I can remember correctly.
I want to say it was a Saturday. So
Yeah.
we were down there that Sunday. We tried to get on the train to get down there. There was no train. I went over to the Dirty Dog, the Greyhound. We got on the Greyhound and got down to Milwaukee the next day. So we were there literally the following day from when it occurred.
Can you tell viewers, for those who don't know about Kenosha, give us a little insight? Jacob hadn't always lived there. What brought him to Kenosha? And tell us a little bit about that.
But the amazing part is that we like to share to everybody out there that you can't run from being an African descendant, and that there's systemic racism everywhere. So he was in the hotbed of gangs and just a lot of stuff in Chicago. He thought he would remove himself to what he saw was like a Mayberry-ish kind of setting where he could rear his children, make some money and stack some money, which is a great idea on surface. But he ran into a chainsaw once he got here and realizing the racism and systemic racism that runs throughout the police department, the DA's department, and throughout the city as a whole. They have been standing on the necks of African descendants in this community quite some time. And so Jake may have been the match, but we always use the analogy there was some unkept wood behind the old shed that wasn't taken care of. And it led to the I'm sorry about that. It led to the uprising that you saw, the burning of buildings, of cars, of businesses. This was the anger that had been built up over the years by African descendants that have lived in this city and county 20 plus years. Yeah. So they had a lot of anger built up, and to see little Jake get shot, although he wasn't from here, they saw it happen in their city, and they were just fed up. And so when they lashed out, it was like, I talked to many people around here, and they say, what happened to little Jake, I saw that it could have happened to me.
Right.
And that's what rose the severe anger and all the uprising that you witnessed.
Wow. And earlier this month, as we said, the officer that was responsible for shooting your nephew, there was a decision made, Officer Rustin Shesky.
Rustin Shesky, right.
Yeah, that there would be no prosecution. We already understand that the reaction from the family had to have been that of disappointment, but it was almost expected in some ways based on how things have gone when it comes to police shootings of African Americans. What was your initial reaction, Justin?
Well, when you understand how deeply embedded systemic racism is in this city and many others, we knew the likelihood of getting a conviction wasn't high. They protect their own through the racism that is involved, and had the admitted gall to pull in an African American like the young man down in Kentucky, who they're trying to indict now, that didn't bring charges up properly for Breonna Taylor and represent her and her family properly. They're trying to bring him under indictment. So we think when the federal people are done shaking this tree down here in Kenosha, I think the DA is going to fall out of the tree. I think the gentleman that they brought down, who was an African American and a clown from Madison, that did nothing for our people at all, had never been encountered of helping African Americans or anybody that looked like him. So by them bringing him in was like, nobody understood what that was all about. I think the DA, the chief of police, this man that they brought in from Madison, the black brother they brought in, will all find themselves in deep trouble with the feds when they circumvent how their investigation went on and how anyone could call for self-defense by shooting a man in the back 7 times. Everybody in the world saw it, and nobody could come up with self-defense.
Yeah,
and mind you, I'm sorry, my nephew's only 140 pounds. He's 140 pounds. And 3 police officers are on the spot when this whole incident occurred. You're telling me 3 police officers couldn't bring down one man that weighed 140 pounds? They don't deserve to be police officers if that's the case.
Yeah.
One man, 140 pounds, man, and 3 police officers.
Yeah. Well, Justin, just yesterday or this week down in Florida, we saw, you talk about one man and 140 pounds. We saw a police officer at a school with a young black student, female student at that, slammed her to the concrete, knocked her out cold.
She looked like she was knocked out. I couldn't tell, but she looked like she was knocked out.
Yeah, and she was. They say the good news is that they say she's recovered, that she's doing okay anyway. But that was a really unsettling video. So we still see, Justin, with having said that, having experienced what you have with your nephew, the Breonna Taylor family, we're still seeing it occur, even though it's being caught on videotape. Why are we still seeing this occur, Justin?
Well, it has a historical background, brother. If we go back to where policing started, I think you'll see that it has a great connection to slavery and the returning of slaves back to the southern states. I think that you'll see that the wording and the procedures that they took about and took upon were literally geared towards everybody in our community and nobody in theirs. So when you're saying they protect and serve, are meant to protect and serve the people from their communities, and then there was a total other way of which they policed and investigated in our community. There was a law that was put in the books in 1986, I believe, and I got to find out the name of it. I'm so sorry, I don't know the name. But in other words, it went from policing engaging and securing what the victim as doing as little bodily harm to the person as you could. Whereas in 1986, they put a law in place where by any means necessary, you could apprehend somebody. And so if you'll see after 86, and it just got worse and worse and worse as the years went on up to 2020, where you saw craziness hit the place. This law being changed is one that we have to abolish, because we need to go back to, you need to be trying to do as minimal damage to a person that you're trying to subdue or bring to justice. We cannot have police officers thinking the very first thing they can do is reach for their weapon.
Yeah, we're talking with Justin Blake, the uncle of Jacob Blake Jr., the young man, 29 years old at the time, was shot 7 times in the back by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Justin, you guys have formed a really close bond, as we mentioned earlier, with the family of Breonna Taylor. Tell us how that came about, and how close are you now?
Well, Jake was on the phone, or Jake had asked for the number from the Taylor family when they heard the hardship they were having, and just thought that they could, support each other. And they were getting ready to come out, I think, in the next 2 or 3 days with the verdict for Breonna. And Jake said, "Man, I'm gonna come up here and support y'all."
Yeah, the grand jury decision. Yes.
Yeah, after that, he took them to lunch, and since then, there's nothing that we don't talk about, or late night calls and all that between the Breonna Taylor's family, the Floyd family, the Coles, the Stinnett family, and many others. We all sort of have each other's numbers, and if there's anything that each other needs, we're always there to support, because we know how it feels.
Yeah, and that support, again, you can speak to this too. Obviously, that support is so important, because you see people around the world that last summer, the Black Lives Matter supporters. I mean, for many that was served as some comfort, but they have that support from someone who actually knows what you're going through. Because it's easy to say, I feel you, but to actually know what you're going through. Could you talk about that part of the relationship, that dynamic, that what each other's going through?
Well, it's sort of like the multiplication problem with have the X factor, and you want to know what the X is. Well, the X is the pain, the suffering, the sleepless nights. And we feel, as the Blake family, like when we went to D.C. with all the families for Reverend Al Sharpton, we almost felt out of place because little Jake's still alive. The Brown family was there. My man, the Clark family out of California, all the different families with me from around the nation, they embraced us. We did to them. It was sort of strange because we still have little Jake and they don't have their loved ones, which that's a tall swallow of any kind of water. So we love being involved with the other families, and anytime they call it anything they need, we would try to.
Yeah, I'm sure that is a breath of fresh air for them as well. Justin, so where are we right now? So you're pursuing a meeting on Capitol Hill. You're pursuing new laws. Where do you go from here? Next month, next year? Where do you go from here?
Well, our total thing is, bro, my father marched with Martin Luther King 3 times on My father's side, his father was a Garveyite. On my mom's side, her grandfather was a Pullman porter, which was my grandfather. Her father was a Tuskegee Airman. We've been fighting a long time. We believe we have gotten the world's attention to finally get some tangible things done for our people. So we were invited to the inauguration by no other than the president himself. So we will be trying to bring our demands to the Senate and the Congress, to the president. We're looking to go speak at the UN, and we'll be pushing it for international ways as well, because there's no way our country would sit by and watch another country see as many deaths by police officers and not say something to do something. What's going on right here in the United States of America? And nobody's saying or doing anything. And so we're trying to, from the streets to the boardroom, get our African descendant brothers to stop harming each other. Once we stop harming each other and we demand respect amongst ourselves, then we can push it and make everybody else respect us.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say we were just in Chicago this past weekend to stop carjacking and 120 carjackings in 20 days. They called us out to Chicago for that. We went to the West Side and hung out with the Black Panther Cubs and helped give away jackets and food. We want to be the conduit to bring and pull everybody together. All the answers that we really need are sitting at our table. Where for one reason or another, we're either too prideful or we're bickering back and forth to have resolved that and figure that out. We have the seventh GDP in the world, which means we have the economic power. All we got to do is straighten this out. We can get the colonialism out of our head. We can start loving each other. There's nothing we can't do. We can start. So we're pushing in DC. I got off the phone with Senator Dick Durbin yesterday. And they were talking about gun violence and said, you know what? We had 2 police officers come into our store that were sergeants. And they were saying, who are you? Please tell us who you are. Why? Because when we opened our store, crime went down 35+% in Inglewood. In the south side of Chicago, which is the most economically challenged and gang violence area in the nation. Why did it go down? Because we brought Black love back. An open store, no glass in between us and the cash register, giving away and doing everything we could to help the young people. Every day we had at least 10 to 15 kids that would go out front and either make a bag of chips or some money doing work, and it brought pride to them. And it showed the community what we could do. Went and talked to the heads of the different gangs and organizations, told them who we are, what we're doing, and asked them to allow children to come from all the different 8 schools around us to have carte blanche to come to the store and come back safely. And it worked. We have to work with each other. We have to really get over ourselves and stop wanting to harm each other, stop even wanting to talk and communicate with each other. And if we can do that, then we can control our own destiny. And nobody ever wanted that, do they?
How about that? Yeah. And that was, part of the question I was going to ask you, and you seem to have covered a lot of it is do you think the message is getting across, the message that you and your brother and your family and Breonna Taylor's family are trying to present to Black America? Is that message finally getting across? We
would say absolutely. When you have great grandmothers to ex-gangbangers trying to make a difference, trying to consciously be a part of something that they know can do well for their community. Most of the original gangsters and Stones and Thurs and Vice Lords are now older gentlemen. Their grandfathers, uncles, and husbands. And at some point, you grow up and be like, you know what? Some of that stuff wasn't the best I did. All of those organizations initially started to provide safety and security to their communities, where they had white police officers and others coming in our community, knocking the holy hell out of somebody in the middle of their mother or father or loved ones. And that's how these organizations initially started. Somewhere along the way, they went the wrong way. And so we're trying to pull them back to what they originally start was, to protect our communities. So I've never, excuse me, I'm sorry, I got the little sniffles. I've never seen so many organizations, big and small, not for profit and for profit, churches and mosques in the city of Chicago working together like we do now.
Yeah, and look, a lot has been written about your nephew, Jacob Blake, since August. A lot has been said about him. But what is something perhaps you can tell us that maybe people don't talk about, but you would love them to know about your nephew?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say this and be taken wrong. He's just another young man. He's like your son, your nephew. Loves music, loves his family. Um, Works and busts his butt every opportunity he had, has two jobs at one time trying to make a difference. Um, that's what we keep trying to explain to people, that Jacob was the reason so many people react around the world is because he's like everybody else. He's just another young man. He wanted better for his family, so he went and sought a place that thought he could do better. He got a job. He had multiple jobs. The people up and down the block knew him. He's obviously my nephew, so I'm gonna say he's a great young man, but he really was. He's just one of those guys, like you talk about average people doing incredible things. That would be him.
Yeah.
You know, he knew his neighbors. One of a veterans dude that he used to borrow the lawnmower from. Said he was, Caucasian brother said, man, your nephew's a great young man. When he first got here, he came over to borrow him the lawnmower to make sure it looked good for when the family got here. All the older ladies up and down the block knew him. So he was one of those guys. He loves football, loves sports, loves music, and he's really just a good young man. Like all of these young men,
Yeah.
they keep trying to paint him like he's special, and the other young men like they're not. All our young men are fabulous, and we want them to know we need their leadership.
Yeah. And
Yep.
and Justin, we have just a couple moments left, but you mentioned to us earlier about a music video that's
Yes.
going on. How much can you tell us about that in the next couple of minutes?
Well, I can tell you a little bit real quick. We have the honor and the blessing to work with Curtis Blow, one of the master creators of the rap game. And Snoop Dogg heard some of the track that we're putting down for it, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be on the next call that we're on when we talk about discussing the pushing it further and the further development of it. We love young people, and we just want to relate to them to love yourselves.
Yeah.
Stop hurting each other, and if we embrace each other, the whole world will.
And about when do you think the video will be ready and everybody will be able to see it?
I'm thinking by summer or spring, y'all gonna be bopping to some Snoop Dogg and some Curtis Blow, and they've written a couple of lines for Little Jake to say.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. Justin, it's been a privilege. You guys stay in touch, keep us up to date, and all the best with this push on Capitol Hill and what you're doing there in Chicago. Fantastic work. Keep it up, and our best to your family, our best to your nephew, our best to your brother as well.
Big ups to the red, the black, and the green. Unity now. One Africa, brother. Thank you.
Take care, Justin. Everybody stay safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Social distance. Let's beat this virus, y'all. Have a good day.
My man. Peace.